Welcome into this Thursday preview edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Mike Renner, JP Acosta coming at you, ready to get diving into this Week 7 slate. But JP, I don't know if you can tell, I just moved into a new place here in Cincinnati, and we don't have blinds. And I'm about 10 minutes away from being absolutely blinded. I can see the sunlight creeping. It is going to be directly in my face in about 10 minutes. So I put a hat on. I don't know if it's going to work, but the things you don't think about moving into a new place.
It's going to be like you're in Jerry World. Remember when
they
played there last year and Jalen Hurts just couldn't see? It's going to be like you're in the Jerry Dome.
Who was the receiver? There was literally just one this past week. I think in the Oklahoma game, Jaron Kranick or whatever looked right into the sun. That's going to be me halfway through the pod. I'm going to miss. If my analysis is bad, it's because I'm looking right in the sun. I can't see. Well,
exactly.
Exactly.
We got to get reps in the sun.
Last night I was here in Covington, which where I'm actually at, not technically Cincinnati. I went and saw the Fitz and Witt show out at Covington Yard. Those guys are great, man. I haven't really listened to their pod. I feel like I actually was just talking about this with Trevor Sickema at PFF over the weekend. We were like, if you do a podcast yourself and have to work in the NFL, I don't know if you consume much other NFL content, but it's like very difficult, I feel like, to consume other NFL podcasts.
Yeah. It's random, like sporadic, weekly. Like sometimes I'll tune into one if I'm like, oh, maybe I need like some other thoughts or ideas or other perspectives on what I think happened in a game. So I'll go look for different perspectives there. But I'm not like regularly listening to NFL podcasts. I'm more just like, now I'm looking for like weird history podcasts. I want to look for one on like piracy.
Yeah, that's what I'm more into. Is history podcasts, things of that nature, like take my brain out of NFL mode. But those guys were extremely entertaining. Andrew Whitworth told some stories about his time in Cincy and like some stories he said he'd never told before about how he actually left Cincinnati in the first place. And it really wasn't his decision, unfortunately. But I feel like they probably have a pretty good podcast and feel like they were very prepared too. Like Fitzpatrick was talking about stuff from the Bengals-Packers game from the week before that. Felt like they truly did the work. So shout out to those guys. But I wanted to talk about PFF grades before we get into this slate because it's been all the rage all week, whether it's Chris Long talking about it, Kyle's brother, JJ Watt talking about it, Pat McAfee talking about it. Everyone has given their take on PFF grades. And obviously myself as a former PFF employee who was like one of the first 10 people in the door there when I started in 2012. I'm very intimately familiar with the grading system, the evolution of it. Obviously, I've been out for a few years now, so don't know what change they've made in the meantime. But I'll just give my 10,000-foot view, and then you tell me what you think about it. I think PFF grades certain positions extremely well, particularly line of scrimmage. And it's ironic that JJ Watt's like decrying the line of scrimmage and saying he couldn't grade, he knows defensive line play and he couldn't grade other defensive lines. It's like that's kind of the point here. It's like it is supposed to be someone grading from the outside. We're not replacing your coach's grade and telling, like, if you're in a building, you should not care about what PFF has to say about you. We were trying to give the fans, give anyone else an expert opinion. And I think they do line of scrimmage play very well. Outside of that, it gets murkier. I think quarterbacks is probably next after that because I think it's the next easiest in terms of you can judge how well a throw was, where it was supposed to be placed. You can more or less judge how well they went through a progression, and you can assign blame on things like sacks and things of that nature that it's not really rocket science. Now, other things like coverage, particularly zone coverages, busts, things of that nature, it gets a little more difficult, but I use PFF grades especially in scouting, especially in their college PFF grades, as kind of a production, as a better version of production. So like for linebackers, a lot of people use tackles. For, cornerbacks, there really are no stats outside of PFF stats, but like for wide receivers, you use yards. But I think the grade tells me better than those other stats tell me how they produced. Now it's up to you or me as an analyst who's watching the game to say, was their production easier than other people's production? Was it schemed up, or was it them going above and beyond in a difficult role? That's the thing that they're never going to be able to tell you with the grade, is how difficult the role was, and in like the TJ Watt scenario, how many times they're double teamed and really take into account things like that. So I've never used it as an end all be all. I think I saw Sam Monson say that he hates that they have it on the broadcast as just one number. I agree. I think that's the worst way to use a PFF grade. But I think it has more value than the people who want it to completely decry it want to say.
Yeah, and I think with every grade, with every number that we find, when it comes to trying to talk about this sport, there has to be context behind it. It is a tool and not like
they're pieces of a puzzle. It's not the whole puzzle. It's not the
exactly. You're not going to make your entire analysis off of a PFF grade. It might be a useful supplement, but you have to go back and see why or how they came to that conclusion. And I think that's super important, especially you talked about linebacker play, especially when it comes to PFF grades. That's really difficult to sort of grade and chart out because, especially like you said with coverage busts, we're unfortunately not in the room when they talk about these coverages and what you have to do against these concepts. That's where you have to go and do the research, do the work on finding what playbooks. It's honestly super cool, like how much knowledge about the game has grown to where like you can look up Kyle Shanahan playbook and you'll probably find like 8 downloads of it. You can go to CoachTube and find the Packers offensive coordinator talking about run game fundamentals, and you can watch that clinic and you'll better understand why they do what they do. So I think with PFF, it is a tool. It is not the entire thing that you base your argument off of. And I think it's correct when saying like, don't have it be the only thing on the broadcast. It's not that sort of misleads the fan being like, oh, PFF grades high, he must be really good. Or it could just be, like I said, it lacks context. So I think with everything we talk about with analysis, you can just throw numbers out there, but not understanding the why or how you got to those numbers or how those numbers came to be, it's just empty carbs.
Yeah. I also think the general public, people who maybe haven't played football or tried to analyze football, would be a little surprised how not rocket science this is. On every given play, yes, all 11 variables as a whole kind of look like chess. But if you're just even just to continue the chess analogy, if you're just looking at a rook's job is very easy. A rook can go 2 different directions. That's kind of like a defensive tackle on a play. Like their job, any given one player's job is very easy. So when you're looking at the whole of it, it's oftentimes very easy to see who's the one that screwed up, because everyone has such a minuscule thing they're responsible for. Because if they had a lot on their plate, if they had to diagnose and do a bunch of different things, they just wouldn't be playing fast enough to be doing that in the NFL. So it may look like, foreign to a lot of people, but once you actually study the game, once you have insight into how coverage schemes work, how blocking schemes work, things of that nature, it becomes pretty easy 9 times out of 10, I'll say, to diagnose who was wrong on most plays where there is a bust, where there is a misassignment, things of that nature.
And that's what we're here for. That's what we're here to do. We are here to help people understand. We're here to help bridge that gap. You see a number here, it's like, that's really weird. Well, we do a pretty good job explaining those things. We can explain those things and see like why those are the way that they are. And that's really where the rubber hits the road when it comes to analysis. Like I said, if you just have the numbers in front of you but don't understand why you're getting them, you don't really learn anything.
Great sales pitch, JP. That much better salesman than myself. I can't sell for shit. All right. That's enough about PFF grades. Sorry to bring the mood down. Let's get to the Week 7 preview. And we'll start with a little locks recap. All season long, up to the playoffs, Cash App is sponsoring our locks. We'll track how we're doing each episode, with the winner being presented with Cash App's lock trophy at the end of the season. We're not doing great, is how we're doing. I went 4-4 last week. You went 1-4. Harry goes 2-3. Kyle goes 1-3. on the season, it's just Kyle at 58%, Harry at 50%, and then, well, we don't really have to talk about ours. 46 and 38. It's tough. It's been tough.
Minor setback, major comeback. We're setting ourselves up for a big second half turnaround. Got to get into the bye week, really analyze what's been going wrong, and we'll come back with a fire in our bellies.
Exactly. We need a bye week at this rate. When's ours coming up? We're the Ravens. We're 1-5, and we should actually have a bye week where we just don't pick any locks. We're like, hey, this is it. We're taking this week off. Next week we'll get back to the locks, but I digress. All right, Sunday you can count on the NFL and CBS Week 7 schedule featuring divisional rivalries and must-see QBs. Beginning with the Raiders on the road against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, a late afternoon showdown with the Colts taking on the Chargers, or rookie sensation Jackson Dart and the Giants meeting the Broncos. It all begins at noon Eastern with the NFL Today. You can always count on Sundays with the NFL and CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Let's start with our primetime game, some Monday Night Football doubleheader action, and we'll kick it off with the Bucs Lions. Lions 5.5-point favorites here. 52.5 points is the over-under. Lions will be without Brian Branch as his one-game suspension was upheld by Jordy Nelson, which is fun for Lions fans and for Packers fans. Lions haven't had back-to-back losses, though, in 50 games. Franchise record there for the Detroit Lions. This 5.5 points, though, it's just begging me. It's begging me to go Tampa Bay with the way Baker Mayfield. You cannot give 5.5 points to Baker Mayfield. You just can't right now.
It feels like he's going to see that 5.5 number and go, okay, cool. I see you. Like he is so good when everybody doubts him. When nobody likes Baker Mayfield, it feels like he gets a power up. It's like he goes Super Saiyan. This game should be really fun. It should be really exciting. I'm really curious on if the Lions change their coverage strategy against the Bucs, considering they don't have one of their quarterbacks of the defense in Brian Branch in this game, but also another versatile chip who can play man coverage, who can play from the roof and zone. Do they try and play more man and just like say whatever happens, happens? I would worry that they play a lot of man because Baker's scrambles have been so effective this year. But if you play zone, you really have to get your pass rush going.
The secondary now for the Detroit Lions is going to look like this. Rockison, Amik Robertson, Avonte Maddox, Kirby Joseph. Oh, God. That's not, that ain't great. Kirby Joseph, obviously, your one calling card there. He still leads all safeties in interceptions this season. Guy is a ball hawk, but Brian Branch led all safeties in pass breakups. He's, that's the duo kind of does a lot of damage there on the back end, makes up for a lot of ills that these corners were having. And if you don't have the duo, especially against the Bucs, especially with the way that passing offense is going, I don't know. I like the Bucs. I just like the Bucs in this one. I do.
I kind of like the Bucs too, and I want to flip it over to the other side of the ball where Christian Mahogany, Tate Ratledge, Graham Glasgow going to have one of their biggest tests when it comes to running the ball against Vita Vea and a run defense that consistently in Tampa Bay has been very, very good. They are always going to pack the line of scrimmage. They're going to play with 5 defensive linemen up front, and they can rotate off of that. I do wonder how much of the coverage or pressure looks Todd Bowles throws at the Lions and Jared Goff because of how much under center play action they do. Because of how much Jared Goff is turning his back to the defense, do you try and drop Yaya Diaby in the coverage and bring an extra guy? It's going to be a very different challenge than Kansas City because Kansas City's not going to do a lot of that. But where you really saw the Lions kind of get got in that game is there were too many leaks in pass pro for them to really keep a hold of. You're already accounting for Dan Skipper. You already have to account for Chris Jones on the other line of scrimmage. You're already putting out so many different fires that eventually the dam breaks. So I wonder if this game is going to be a little different because nobody on the Bucs outside of maybe Yaya Diaby is a true one-on-one consistent pass rush threat. Hassan Reddick's more of he's a situational guy. They've dropped him into coverage a lot, but where they get you is just running all these cool pressures. You're dropping Diaby in the coverage. You're bringing Jamel Dean off the corner. He had a sack that way against San Francisco. So I wonder what the game plan is for Bowles, especially against a quarterback in Jared Goff, who's playing really, really well right now.
Yeah, they need Taylor Decker, though. That's the big one, is they didn't, the Bucs are missing Luke Gedeke on the right side. They've been able to make up for that. The Lions were not, with what they had going on with Taylor Decker down the past couple weeks. So that's the biggest thing. Now, on the flip side, I say that, but Charlie Heck has actually allowed the second most pressures in the NFL this season with 23. And he's going up against the guy who leads the NFL in pressures, in Aiden Hutchinson, with 32. So that's one where it's just like, hey, we're going to have a tight end over there every single play. We're going to have a running back. That's one of those known mismatches that you just, every single play, you're basically scheming around. But I just think the Bucs have more advantageous matchups across the board, because the interior of that Lions offensive line, guys like Graham Glasgow, guys like, Tate Ratledge, they are lighter, trimmer, more athletic. That doesn't work against Vita Vea. It's just like, you got to match power for power with Vita Vea, or he's the walk back king. Like the guy has the ability to late bull rush pretty much every offensive lineman in the NFL, but especially when you're a lighter offensive lineman, you are just going to be holding on for dear life. So I just think that interior pressure is really what you see spook off more often than not. And when the interior is not firm, that's when you can affect this Lions passing game in my eyes.
But I will say, for the Lions' advantage is, if they can hold up in pass protection, you can go after these linebackers. You can go after them in a passing game. And I think that the 49ers did a pretty good job of that outside of like play action scenarios. They were hit. Mac Jones was ripping digs over the middle of the field for most of that game until his body eventually gave out. Jared Goff is, like we said, he's the king of the 12-yard dig. So if he's going to be able to get something going in this passing game, it's going to have to be, I think, in just straight drop back scenarios where, they're not turning their back to the Bucs defense, and he's able to diagnose everything just straight up.
I don't care about their injuries. You got to have Jacob Parrish in the slot in this game. He's got to be a slot. You can't have him outside. It's too necessary to have him, one, around the line of scrimmage for the running game, but two, just like in coverage to be a guy that's at least reliable when you have Amon-Ra St. Brown going over the middle of the football field consistently. Just that's where the Lions attack. He needs to be in that area of the football field, because he is right now maybe your best corner. He is so damn good in the slot, but just he's not an outside corner. I think we've kind of seen that the past 2 weeks too. Yeah,
you're going to need either Zion McCollum or Benjamin Morrison healthy playing in this game, so you can get everybody back in their most optimal positions.
All right, do we got to pick? I'm leaning Bucs.
I'm going to say Bucs. I think this one's really close. I think this one's going to take some more Baker Mayfield magic.
This is, like I said, a great Monday Night Football slate. That one, and then we have Houston at Seattle, the late show here. Seattle 3.5-point favorites. 40.5 points is the over-under. And we have our first locks here. We got a double lock. We both love the under in this game.
Oh, yeah. I think for any game that the Texans play this season, I'm just going to bet the under, because that defense is that darn good. And they pose a very unique problem for the Seahawks in the fact that they don't have to blitz to get pressure. They don't have to devote a lot of bodies to stopping the run. And the Seahawks, as good as they've been offensively, have been the 30th best unit in terms of EPA per play in terms of running the football. They still have not been able to find any success on the ground, whether it be due to the offensive line. It was very underrated during the Jaguars game. Anthony Bradford had a rough game again. You're struggling again up front. I think Grace Abel is great, but you're struggling again up front to run the ball or get any movement. You're putting everything on Sam Darnold. He's playing fantastic, but against a defense like the Texans, who can really get after you in pass rush, and I actually think their run defense has played a lot better in terms of they haven't been gashed by gap scheme very much this season. I'm really curious on how Clint Kubiak designs and dresses up this offense to mask this to hurt this Texans defense and slow down that pass rush, I expect a lot of play action. There's going to be a play action heavy diet. I think you're going to try and attack Al-Shaair, try and attack Henry Toto over the middle of the field. Just really try and use their eyes against them, use their aggression. The Texans defense, and especially their linebackers, are so aggressive flowing up the field. They're trying to create negative plays. They're trying to get upfield fast, and you can really use that against them in play action. I think Seattle does a really good job of dressing up their play action to really hurt teams without actually needing to run the football. And it really affects defenses like Houston, where their second-level eyes are so aggressive in playing the run. So I'm curious on how Clint Kubiak really draws this up against one of, if not the best defense he's seen so far.
Yeah, to put some numbers to how devastating this play-action passing game has been, Sam Darnold's averaging 15.2 yards per attempt. 15.2. He's almost doubled his yards per attempt from not play action to play action passes. And now, there's always this thing where it's play action merchant when a guy is effective off play action. That has not been the case whatsoever. I resent that characterization of Sam Darnold's game. He's been awesome this year. Highest big time throw rate, lowest turnover worthy play rate, highest average depth of target, third fewest sacks. The numbers they speak for themselves. He has been, it's not just wide open guys. He has made some special throws all throughout this season. I think it continues, man. I think that play action game is enough to slow down these edge rushers. And if there's one place where I trust the Seahawks, actually, it's the tackles are solid there. The interior is tough, but the tackles, I think, can hold up at least a little bit to this edge rushing duo of the Houston Texans. So I like the Seahawks quite a bit here. We obviously love the under as well. But I just think, we touched on this. What show was it? Where it's just the Houston Texans offensive line is susceptible to lose every single spot. The Seattle Seahawks defensive line is susceptible to win at every single spot. That's a recipe for disaster for the Houston Texans offense, in my opinion.
Something that the Seahawks did really well against Jacksonville last week was they isolated DeMarcus Lawrence on the weakest matchup up front, and he was absolutely awesome. It sucks again for Cowboys fans who have seen Micah Parsons go, and he's been great in Green Bay, but very underrated. They missed DeMarcus Lawrence too, and DeMarcus Lawrence has been amazing in Seattle this year. But what they are able to do is, I think this is going to be a game where they just try and win with 4. You don't have to blitz because CJ Stroud is real. CJ Stroud has been good this season, not this season, but he's been good against the blitz this season. And that has been something where you can see the Seahawks really keep trying to push those buttons and really try and manipulate their pressure looks or their pass protection packages for Houston, which has not been very good at all this year. So maybe they try and do that and still win with 4. But something that Seahawks do really well is they are so effective as pocket pushers and on pass rush games because they all understand where each other wins the most. Where Byron Murphy is able to crash upfield so fast and Boye Mafe is so quick around in the loop. They're so good at playing off each other in those pass rush games that I'm really worried about that Houston Texans offensive line trying to pass off stunts and pass rush games against this defense.
Yeah, Byron Murphy, we've talked about him a little bit, but to hammer it home, he has been everything and more for this in year 2 for the Seahawks. 22 pressures, 4th most in the NFL, 4th highest PFF pass rushing grade. The guy is explosive as can be and just a perfect fit for that defensive line there in Seattle. Let's get to the other primetime game this weekend. Atlanta at San Francisco. Sunday night football here. 49ers, 1.5-point favorites. Who's starting for the 49ers at quarterback and wide receiver? I don't know. Who knows at this point? I'm not even going to try to break it down. Just look on Sunday. You'll guys find out. And honestly, I'm not sure it matters with the way this offense has been playing. 46.5 points is the over-under here. I love the Falcons, man. I just love this Falcons team. I think they have so much more potential offensively than even what we've seen so far. And I just think they're the better team right now.
When you are not very good at corner and safety and cannot defend deep passes, the Falcons are going to crush you because that's where they want to live. They want to live throwing to the edges of the field. They want to live throwing those deep curl routes. They want to live throwing the sail routes to the edges of the field. And that's something where I think Michael Penix can attack this secondary with, is because they're really young. And they're really young. They play a lot of match coverage. You're asking a lot of guys like Marquise Siegel, who's not played well in coverage, and Malik Mustafa, who is more of a hammer in run defense than he is in coverage. So you're asking a lot of a young secondary, an even younger pass rush, and now you don't have Fred Warner. So it looks like Tatum Bethune might get that starting spot next to D. Winters, which is going to be really tough against a Falcons team that, against Buffalo, I think they did a really good job of designing different ways to get Bijan the ball, whether it be lined up in the slot, whether it be lined up out wide. They brought him in orbit motion and they ran like a rocket toss to him. They'd run outside zone with him. He is basically like, it's like trying to defend Steph Curry, where like you got to know where he's at all the time, because he's going to run around all the screens. He's going to do a lot of the motion stuff. Bijan does all of that. It's like having a really good like slot receiver who can do all the motion stuff like Deebo Samuel did, but also he's an actual running back who is really good at the sport. So it's going to be tough to see them. It's going to be interesting to see them defend this Falcons offense. But man, the Falcons defense rules. I was watching their game.
I was going to say about Bijan, he's like Christian McCaffrey. I mean, like those are the two backs that can do that. That's why they covered Christian McCaffrey so much in San Francisco. That's why he's so dynamic in Atlanta.
Exactly, and it's because of the ability to be a legitimate receiver. They're drawing choice routes for him in the middle of the field. That's awesome. But I got to take a minute to talk about this Falcons defense, because they freaking rule. And it's not just like the stars. It hasn't been the stars for them that have played well. It's been all of the other guys rising to that level. AJ Terrell has been fine this year. It hasn't been like amazing. Jesse Bates has been fine, but Zach Harrison has been awesome this year. He's had some really nice plays against the run and the pass. On the Josh Allen interception to D. Alford, both the end the game. Zach Harrison gets pressure. He on the one to end the half. Zach Harrison is creating that lane for Jalen Walker to come back around and get the pressure on Josh Allen that leads to the sack. Jalen Walker's been awesome. That is a football guy. That is someone who is going to like hit you as hard as possible. He's done a lot of really cool stuff in man coverage. And then like this linebacker group is so fitting for this defense. Divine Diablo, I says playing like a Pro Bowl caliber linebacker this year. Caden Ellis leads all off-ball linebackers in pressures. They have so many ways of getting after you, but they can mitigate some of that risk of playing those guys in coverage with the way that they drop guys, with the way they play their simulated pressures. And against Mac Jones, if it is Mac Jones, and even if it's against Brock Purdy, with how much play action they want to run and how much they turn their back to the defense, this is going to have to be a Kyle Shanahan. I'm just drawing everything up to confuse these guys, because I don't think their offensive line can hold up in straight drop back scenarios.
Zach Harrison's interesting because I think from a scouting perspective, he's kind of very indicative of where the NFL is going. He's 6'5", 272. He was a 4-3 defensive end at Ohio State. That's what he was his very first year with the Falcons also. He is now basically an interior defensive lineman. He plays some out in the edge, but that's where the NFL is going. Those guys who are not, athletic guys, not super athletic if you call them edge rushers. But once you throw them on the interior, all of a sudden, like a Zach Allen. Zach Allen at Boston College was a true edge. He was a 4-3 defensive end. He did not play in the interior. Those guys with that body type who aren't truly explosive, they're on the inside now. The guys who are playing edge are the guys who run 4.5s. Like if you are a 4.7 guy, you should bulk up and play on the interior in the NFL. That's just where the game's going. Speed is such a premium, explosiveness is such a premium that you'll give up a little bit in run defense if a guy can really rush the passer on the interior. So that's he is a very indicative, and there's a lot of big defensive ends in this upcoming draft class. There are a lot of 265 plus guys that we're going to be calling them defensive ends, but don't be surprised if in year 2 or 3 in the NFL, these guys are defensive tackles for all intents and purposes.
The heavy five, like the heavy five tag. That's where everybody wants to be, with the versatility that you can play your fronts with, moving those guys from being like your heavy five, move them inside when you walk your linebacker down. That's exactly where teams want to be. And what helps Zach Harrison in this position, he has a 98th percentile wingspan and 98th percentile arm length, 36.25-inch arms, which is incredible. And I think that helps him so much on the interior, despite being undersized weight-wise, like 270, playing against guards, because what you see him win with is the length. And that length has really helped him out a lot. I think Rukaroro has played really well in this new defense. I think he leads all defensive interior players in pressures, like total pressures. And he's just been awesome.
Pressure rate.
Yeah, pressure rate. He leads in pressure rate, which is really fun. And now you have guys where you can say, like, hey, we can have these guys win on their own, but with all the design blitz looks that they're using, this could be a game where Kyle Shanahan's going to really have to dress it up to make sure his quarterback is comfortable.
And also, Jalen Walker's been a dude. He has been he was one of those guys where in the draft I was super high on him. He was number 5 on my board. I'm like, I think it's going to happen. But you had in my back of my head, he's one of those where I'm like, this could go south. He is 6'1", he's 240. He played off-ball linebacker. He had this like weird hybrid role at Georgia where he was off-ball linebacker, edge. Didn't really rush the passer a lot, but you just watch his tape and I'm like, he's got it. And in week 1, when I watched him, I'm just like, it ain't happening right now. But you saw him have reps where the power translated against NFL guys. And that's really what you want to see is like, does the power we saw in college, does it work in the NFL? It did right away. It wasn't consistent, but it did. When you see that, it's like, it's only a matter of time. And the matter of time is now. He had 5 pressures last week against the Buffalo Bills. He is already an impact player for this Falcons defense. And I'm curious, given the success of this Falcons defense, if we see a resurgence in the evaluation of safeties, because a big reason they're able to win and be so effective is those safeties, and Xavier Watson, Jesse Bates, are just such good tacklers. They clean up. You can be chaotic with your front 7. You can not worry about gap control. If you basically have 2 guys who are going to clean up everything when you do mess up, who can just be, not box players, but guys who, as soon as they're able to read it quickly, as these guys do, come up and basically be an add-on box player from depth. They have 2 of those guys. Not a lot of teams do. I don't think anyone has 2 that are quite as good as the Falcons duo at doing that. And that just allows you to do so much more with your front 7 because you're not worried about, hey, this 8-yard gain all of a sudden is a 50-yard gain. That's not the case with the Falcons defense this year.
And their ability to tackle from depth matters so much because up front, they're also able to play really well and just hold gaps. They're not exactly like getting penetration upfield. You're thinking about like David Onyemata having a great year, but just containing, with just holding gaps, with forcing running backs to cut back into Xavier Watson, Jesse Bates, who now that they are able to read run fully are able to fill that gap. There was a great run rep they had against the Bills. I went for like a 2-yard gain. I think they were running like duo or something. And Zach Harrison is just holding, just like really kicking ass against this double team. And Xavier Watts comes flying down and makes a tackle. That's team defense. Zach Harrison doesn't get the tackle. He doesn't get the stop, but he looks like he helps create the play. And I think that matters a lot more than some of the splash plays you're going to see from defensive linemen, especially with the way that you want to play light boxes in the NFL. Being able to just hold gaps and being able to hold double teams and stop vertical displacement is going to really help, especially as modern defenses try and get guys who can tackle from depth.
I feel bad that we kind of just bathed the Falcons in praise and just didn't say a damn thing about the 49ers, but sorry, the Falcons are more interesting right now. The 49ers, they win this game, we'll go in on the 49ers if they win this game on the Sunday night show. But we're both picking Falcons here. Harry's got the over in this one. 46.5 is that number. Let's get to Rams at Jags. Rams 3-point favorites on the road. Have we learned not to get the Jags a home dog this year? Come on. 44.5 points. They've won, I think, multiple games as a home dog already this season. Just disrespectful to this Jacksonville team. I love the Jags here. It's actually one of my locks, I believe, because you can't have a home dog in Jacksonville with the way this team has played this season.
I am not touching this game, largely because I think both teams are able to attack in ways where the other is weak. For the Jaguars offense against the Rams defense, mainly talking about Walker Little. Walker Little has been pretty good to start the year, just had 2 of the worst games of his career back-to-back. And it's because he struggles with power. He cannot anchor against power. That is not a good day. That's not a good week to struggle against power going up against
Jared versus powerful?
Byron Young.
I can't remember. Can Jared versus bull rush?
Yeah, I think that might be one of his that's one of his moves that he'll pull out. He got a pretty.
Does he have another? Is there another Jared versus move?
No, there isn't. It's that Marshawn Lynch quote: "Run through an MF your face." Yeah. That's Jared versus pass rush move. Byron Young also wins with power. So if Walker Little cannot anchor in this game, you worry about it quickly becoming a game like the Seahawks, where Trevor Lawrence played pretty good, but you could tell that he was getting sped up relentlessly, and that sort of threw everything off. You can't run the ball. You couldn't throw the ball against the Seahawks. So I'm curious if they're going to be able to get their run game going, but if you want to attack this Rams defense, 53% of their total yards allowed in the passing game this year have come after the catch. They do not tackle very well because they don't have the athletes in space. And I think Liam Cohen said yesterday that there was going to be more options for Travis Hunter to be the number one receiving choice on a lot of passing plays against the Rams. And I was like, yeah, look at who they're playing. Look at their linebacker group. That's all Travis Hunter does is choice routes against linebackers and quarters, and he turns them into mincemeat. So I wonder if this is going to be a game where you don't necessarily see the fireworks show from the Jaguars offensively, not a lot of downfield stuff, but because they want to isolate these linebackers, this secondary in tackling, and want to make them play in space because they're just not that good of athletes. The Rams don't have great athletes at the second and third level. They have guys who are smart and can play off the roof, but once you get them in space, you can win a lot of ways. So I wonder if this is a big ETN game as a receiver. You get Bishal Tootin involved as a receiver. I already said Travis Hunter choice routes are going to be like the main route that you're going to see a lot of, hopefully, in this game. So I think there are multiple ways for this defense to attack the Jaguars offense, but it's also the same way for a Jaguars offense that has kind of lived on choice routes and yak this season.
This is what I will describe as a Liam Cohen special. This is why you have Liam Cohen. To me, he's one of the best screen game designers in the NFL. He's one of the best run game designers in the NFL. And that is what this game is. You are not going to drop back pass against the Los Angeles Rams with the state of your offensive line versus the state of their defensive line. You can get them upfield, though, and attack with screens. You can get them upfield and attack in the running game consistently. I like Tootin's over in the running game, maybe in the passing game, too. I just think it's going to feature those underneath guys. Now, I would feel so much better about the Jaguars if they had Brenton Strange, because I think he's awesome in that regard. He is was such a crucial piece to this offense when he was healthy. Guys like Hunter Long, Johnny Munt are not him, I'll just say. So that's going to hurt. But I still like the Jags because I think they can scheme around it. And if Puka doesn't play, given the ankle injury, given that he came back but didn't look like himself, I don't think he even got targeted after he came back from it, hasn't practiced, doubt they would rush him back given how important he is to this offense. But that's the thing. He's so important to this offense that his loss in this game is far more impactful than any Jaguars loss in this game. And I think the Jags roll because of it. As they only scored 17 points last week against the Ravens freaking defense because Puka was out.
I think for this game, if Puka is out, you really worry about Stafford against pressure. And I think it's important to get pressure on Matthew Stafford without blitzing. The Jaguars love to create those pressure packages, try and get guys on sim pressure looks. That is what they've really been really successful at. But when it just comes to winning with 4, they haven't really been the best. And it's not because Josh Hines-Allen or Trayvon Walker sporadically haven't played good, because they've played really well. It's just the defensive interior is not doing what you expected them to do in pass rush. And now that Trayvon Walker has played, he played sparingly against the Seahawks because, again, wrist surgery. I don't expect to see Trayvon Walker fully until after the bye. So how are you going to generate pressure without blitzing against Matthew Stafford when Stafford is under pressure? His EPA per dropback is -0.2, which is really bad. And then when he's not pressured, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So how do you hide Greg Newsome in coverage? How do you hide your guys in coverage is with a good pass rush and zone coverage, you have to get home on Matthew Stafford. You have to make him feel it without blitzing.
You got to pick, JP? You're not touching it, but you got to touch it. Come on.
It's in London.
Weird,
It's in London. I'm going to pick the Jags. I think the Jags have enough to really attack this defense. And without Puka, I'm really, really worried about the sustainability of this Rams offense because I don't think he's going to play in this game. Like, it's because you're going overseas, because it's an AFC opponent, and we're in week 7. I just don't see the Rams risking it. It would be unwise to risk your best player suffering a more serious injury later in week 7 when you're still like trying to fight to win the division at this point.
And with the weird travel schedule to London, it's like that. I'm with you. All right. Eagles at Vikings. Eagles 2.5-point favorites on the road. 43.5 points is the over-under. No clue if it's a JJ game or a Wentz game. JJ's still limited in practice with an ankle. Not sure that moves the line either way. Jalen Carter will be playing. He has been sackless this season. He's missed 2 games now. Well, not technically. The first game he missed himself, but last week he missed with a heel injury. Quinyon and Landon Dickerson. Quinyon with a hammy, Landon Dickerson with an ankle, both limited. Obviously, Dickerson's banged up to the gills at this point. Even if he does play, I'm not sure that's a great thing for this Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. Who do we like?
This feels like a stoppable force versus a movable object when we talk about like what the Eagles want to do in the run game versus a Minnesota defense that has not been good stopping the run. And I hate to say, like, if you can't get the run game going against this team, it's never going to happen. Because I said it last week against the Giants, and it didn't happen. So I am genuinely curious on what the game plan is going to be against Minnesota. Because what Minnesota can do really well is they have Brian Flores. And they can really, really cause problems for Jalen Hurts as a passer. Because of all the sim pressure looks, because of everything changing post-snap, you just worry about him just having to hold on to the ball. And once he holds on to the ball, you're able to have that pressure get home. And if they can't run the ball, you're constantly going to be in 2nd and long, 3rd and long, exactly where Brian Flores wants to get you. But then you think about, like, the Eagles' best offense is the bailout go balls to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The Vikings don't really have a corner outside of Byron Murphy who can stick with either of those guys. So is this game just going to be like Jalen Hurts hope balls to A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith? So. It might work against this team. Just like shotgun, like don't even take a full drop back. Just like do the Jalen Hurts like hop drop back where he'll like take 1 step and then jump back and just throw it downfield and see what happens. It feels like Carson Wentz playing in this game is a threat. Like when they said like Carson Wentz will be available if JJ can't play, that's a threat. that is a threat to most people. I don't know if we want to see Carson Wentz playing in this game, but if Quinyon Mitchell is limited or cannot go, you just worry about Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson becoming the same thing that they were against the Giants, which is we're just going to throw at him every time.
I feel like you got to give Wentz his revenge game. I don't care if JJ's ready. You just got to let him cook. You got to let him try it. You got to give him the Eagles' revenge game. You just have to. I'm not sure it's going to work out well for him, to be honest, but you got to give him at least this. The Vikings are one of the most interesting defenses in the NFL this season because they are far and away tops in the NFL in terms of EPA per dropback with their passing defense. They are number 1 in the NFL at negative 0.23 EPA per dropback. Next best is negative 0.127. Just insanely dominant. Now, some of that's because they played the Bengals and just ran roughshod over Jake Browning, but they've been good all season long. Now, on the flip side, they're 25th in rushing EPA per play. One of the few teams, one of the 8 teams in the NFL actually giving up positive EPA on the ground. If the Eagles are going to get right, they're going to lean on a running game and mean it in the game this season. This should be it. This should be the game. But Saquon Barkley is averaging 71.1 fewer yards per game this season than he did last season. That would be a record if that continues for the rest of the year. I don't know. I don't know if it does, but I'm betting on it. This is one of my locks in the Philadelphia Eagles. I just think that with all the sky is falling, whatever, this is still an incredibly talented team, and I think they figured out this week against the Minnesota Vikings defensive line, at least on the ground.
I think this is a game that Jalen Hurts needs to run the ball in. And I'm not talking about like scrambles. I'm not talking about occasionally pulling a read option. I'm talking about design, QB power, QB draw. Get him going in the run game because you clearly cannot run the ball just straight up. You can't just lean on guys anymore. And if you're not using Jalen Hurts as a runner, you eliminate the entire thing behind Jalen Hurts being good. Like the entire thing with Jalen Hurts is because he adds a +1 threat in the run game. And the Eagles aren't using him like that. The Eagles aren't using him in the design run game. And I know they're worried about him getting hurt prior to like a deep playoff push. But at this point, you need the offense to get it going now. Forget a playoff push right now. You need to get it going so you don't lose the division. So I think they need to get Jalen Hurts running the ball. I think they need to design him some run game opportunities. For Minnesota, getting Blake Cashman back is going to be huge for them. But I do wonder and worry that I worry that Blake Cashman being the one thing that takes your run defense from bad to good is more of a sign of the fact that your defensive line can't hold any water in the run game, and Blake Cashman has to put out every single fire.
Plus, if Jalen Hurts gets hurt, Tanner McKee season, you might flip him for the first round. He might ball out. It's just it's possible. It's always a threat. You got to pick in this one?
I'm begrudgingly going to go with the Eagles. Reluctantly going to go with the Eagles. If the Vikings offensive line isn't healthy, this might not end well for Carson Wentz.
We didn't even really touch on that, but that's the one thing that still scares you about this Vikings team. All right. Colts at Chargers. Chargers 1.5-point favorites. 48.5 points is the over-under. It's one of Harry's locks. Harry loves the Colts as dogs in this one. I'm not as certain because Josh Downs may not play with a concussion. Ashton Doolin may not play with a chest injury. Charvarius Ward may not play with that unfortunate pregame concussion he suffered, which means it's an Adonai Mitchell game. And if it's an Adonai Mitchell game, throw all the records out the window. He could do something dumb as absolute shit and lose you a football game. He could do something awesome too, though. He's kind of like he's Quentin Johnson before the breakout. That's where he's at right now on his developmental curve, which is fitting because he's going up against Quentin Johnson this week. He's healthy.
This game feels like a chaotic one, but like a quiet chaos. Like there might not be like the score might not reveal like, oh, this game was insane, but it might be like the most chaotic 24-20 game you'll ever see.
Yeah.
Where like I'm just concerned about everybody's health after this one. I do wonder how the Chargers defend the run in this game. They defend the run in a light box at the highest rate in the NFL, or not the highest, but one of the highest rates in the NFL. The Colts are 6th in the NFL in EPA per carry out of light boxes. They hammer teams with the ground game, and it hasn't necessarily come from like Daniel Jones like option stuff. It has been they straight up mash people on the ground. The biggest matchup that I'm looking at is Quentin Nelson, Tanner Bortolini, Malcolm Salvis against Tyir Tart, Otia Ogbonnaya, Deshaun Hand. That defensive interior, that is really going to decide this game. I do wonder if the Chargers are able to get pressure at all. Without Khalil Mack, they have not been able to get pressure. It's why they went out and got Odafe Oweh. So if they're not able to get pressure, I mean, this Chargers defense is still very smart. They close down on a lot of plays in secondary, but you can only do so much for so long against this Colts team. And then on the other side, like, look, man, the Colts they somehow managed to get by on defense. And I think it's because of Lou Anarumo. But now you're playing like one of the superhuman quarterbacks. And I'm not going to say like the Colts have had an easy schedule because I don't think they have. You play who you're scheduled to go up against. But this is the best quarterback they faced since Matthew Stafford. And Stafford kind of lit him up against LA earlier this year. So if you could just give him enough time, which again, this feels sort of like a stoppable force, movable object type of game where the Colts can't really get pass rush, but it might not matter when you play Bobby Hart as your starting right tackle.
Yeah, right.
So this one, which one gives out first?
Yeah, I do worry about the Colts cornerback room. Because without Charvarius Ward, they stink. It's tough. But I do love the fact that you get Latu going up against Bobby Hart. Latu has not been a consistently dominant pass rusher, but he's proven that if he has a mismatch, he can really go to town on offensive linemen this season. So love that for the Colts. I just trust their offense a little more right now to be consistent. They just have so many ways to win. So like even if they don't have Josh Downs, I still think they'll be able to move the football. You still got Tyler Warren, who leads all tight ends in receiving yards this year. Still have Michael Pittman. And as much as we laugh at Adonai Mitchell, the guy's incredibly talented and could, like I said, go out and get them a bucket, win them a game. So I lean Colts. I don't love this one either way. It just feels like it could go either way. I mean, the line's indicative of that. 1.5 points.
Yeah, this one feels a little bit like a toss-up. I like the Colts here because, like you said, I like the sustainability of their offense a little bit more and the fact that they are able to run the ball effectively to get them out of any jam they might face in the passing game. And the Chargers just can't do that right now with an offensive line that really is too banged up and too poor to really play.
Let's get to Commanders at Cowboys. Cowboys 1.5-point dogs. 54.5 is the over-under. I believe that's the highest one we've seen all season, or at least tied for the highest one we've seen all season. Rightfully so. If it's going to be the highest one, it's going to come in a Cowboys game. That's for damn sure. But there are some injuries to note. CD still questionable. TBD with that ankle injury. Debo has a heel injury. Didn't practice yesterday. Terry McLaurin still limited with his quad. Hasn't played in a few weeks now. But a big one here for the Commanders. Sam Cosmi, their awesome right guard. He was a full participant coming off that ACL tear he suffered in the playoffs against Detroit. That would be massive for this offensive line. Does it tip the scales in the Commanders' favor, though, for you?
This game is going to have so many points. This is going to be one of those like college football 26 games where you look back and it's like, dang, their defense was optional in this one.
The only way it doesn't is if it's one of those where each team has like 8-minute drives. So you get like 20, it's like 27, 24, but they never punted. It was just like 8-minute drive, 8-minute drive, 8-minute drive.
It's just like sustainable drives. But I just think Washington's going to create too many explosive plays against this defense. There's too many ways to attack the Cowboys. There's too many fires for Dallas to put out defensively that the Commanders can just solve in any way possible. Like the Cowboys just gave up like 200 yards on the ground to the Panthers. And the Commanders have a much more dynamic, much more dangerous run game than the Panthers. On top of that, the Cowboys have been one of the worst passing defenses in the NFL, and you can't really get pressure. That's not good against a guy like Jaden Daniels, who I haven't talked about him. I feel like I haven't talked about him enough. He is so quick, not only as like a runner, but everything is so fast. His timing, the ball, he doesn't have a strong arm, but he gets enough zip where like every reaction, every timing is so quick where he's able to make decisions before defenses can get to him. And I think that's such a really important thing in this offense where like if it's not open, he's just going to scramble and that's okay. So I like the Commanders here, even though I do think Dallas is going to put up a lot of points on this Commanders defense.
Yeah, my pick depends on CeeDee Lamb. If he plays, if he's a full go, I like the Cowboys. I think it's just they're at home. Dak's never lost the Commanders at home. He, with a full bevy of weapons, not a lot of teams are stopping this Cowboys offense, and especially this Commanders team that's bottom half in the league against the run, bottom half in the league against the pass. They basically, against good offenses, just give it up any which way. But the Commanders, but the same thing is true about the Cowboys, and the Commanders have Jaden Daniels. And the Commanders now have a better offensive line in front of Jaden Daniels with Cosmi coming back. So I guess I'm punting, but I'm saying if CD doesn't play, I like Commanders. If CD does play, give me the Cowboys. Let's get to the Panthers at Jets. Panthers, after back-to-back weeks as home dogs, they're a road favorite. Helps that they're playing the winless Jets. They're 1.5-point favorites here. 42.5 points is the over-under, and this is one of your locks here, JP.
I'm taking the under in this game because I don't think the Jets can score points. I just don't think the Jets can really score, which is going to be really tough because the Panthers can't really get pressure like as like a pass rush unit. They're not really like a pressure unit, But Justin Fields turns every pressure that he does get into a sack. It's always a negative play. But where the Panthers have been really good since getting blown out by the Patriots, they've been really good stopping the run. They've allowed, I believe, against the Dolphins, they allowed a negative 0.51 EPA per carry, and then against Cowboys, it was negative 0.5. Those are two, like, not only like good performances against good rushing teams, those are like historic. Those are like darn near like incredible performances against two good rushing teams. So I just think with their ability to stop the run and forcing Justin Fields to actually try and throw the ball, I just don't know if the Jets have any sustainability there. And if you can get Jalen Coker back healthy, that kind of nullifies the entire idea behind like Sauce Gardner can lock up bigger receivers. Now you got to worry about the other guy, Jalen Coker, if he's back healthy. So I just think the Panthers win this one going away, but this one's probably not going to hit that 42.5.
I said preseason I was excited to see this Jets offense because I think they're zigging when the rest of the league is zagging. And it obviously hasn't worked. And I will tell you why it hasn't worked. Because with their strategy of super run heavy, they've been the run heaviest team in the NFL this season. 1-0. You can't take sacks. If you are going to be that run heavy, you can't have the quarterback with the second most sacks taken in the NFL. That doesn't work. You can't get behind the chains. The key is to always be churning out positive plays with this style of football. So Justin Fields, as much as he does give you a numbers advantage in the running game, he gives you too many negative plays to sustain drives. He kills too many drives with those sacks, and that is just not complimentary quarterback to what they want to be offensively. So that's it. I think this is the last year we'll ever see Justin Fields as a starter. I think his time is gone. He might have a resurgence 5-6 years down the line, but unfortunately, this is it because of that problem. It's just, if that's how you want to put together your team, he is not going to be able to sustain drives because of the sack issues. Now, if you had someone like Daniel Jones is, I think, the quarterback who can make it work in a super run-heavy offense because he ain't going to take sacks. He's going to churn out 3-yard pass play gains for you consistently and not put you behind the chains. That's what you need to make the run-heavy offense work in today's NFL. You need like an Alex Smith. You need someone of that nature who's just won't take those negative plays. Maybe you don't get a ton of explosives out of it. Maybe you don't expose off of play action the way a stronger armed, a better quarterback would, but you are staying consistently in front of the chains and you can keep running the football. With the Jets, it's just mismatched, and I don't see it turn around anytime soon. I definitely don't see it turning around against this Carolina defensive front that's been so good in recent weeks. We've been hampered on it. Been so good against the run in recent weeks. So I really like the Panthers here. The Jets just stink. They just stink.
And I think the thing with Fields is you can see him trying to get through progressions. You can see him trying to go 1 to 2 to 3. But if I'm the Jets, I'm not telling him to go through progressions with the way that, and that's not like, it's not a shot at Justin Fields. It is like you said, the way that they play offense.
Yeah.
You have to remain ahead of the sticks. Yes. You have one choice on this play, and it's to find Garrett Wilson. If he's not open, just run it. Just try and get as many yards you can out of the play because you can't take negative plays. It's not even like I'm not even saying like you can't be fine with an incompletion because then that puts you in 2nd and long or 3rd and long where you cannot use the run game. So you have to try and get as many positive yards out of this. You got to scramble. So I think for the Jets offense to even get back to ground level, you have to tell Fields, if this one read isn't open, just take off, man. You're a great athlete. Use your legs to your advantage in this.
Yeah. He's 8th in the NFL in scrambles. Should be 1st going away. Should probably have like double anyone else at this point. So yeah, I'm in 100% agreement. All right. We're going to take a quick break. After that, Dolphins, Browns, Saints, Bears, Packers, Cardinals, Pats, Titans, Giants, Broncos, Raiders, Chiefs, and then cap out with our locks.
You can't count on Derek's tong skills.
Oh, Tony, I think it hit the ground.
But you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
Dolphins at Browns. Browns 2.5-point favorites. 39.5 points is the over-under. We actually have a couple locks from this one. Harry's going Devon Achane, Achane, however you want to say it. Anytime touchdown. I'm going over. 39.5. The Tua is uniquely qualified to not get hit by the Browns pass rush because one, he knows that he's not going to have time. And so he's going to throw the ball. And he's either going to throw picks or he's going to throw plays, but he's not going to take sacks, which are over killers, if you will. And the Dolphins get ran on and moved the football on by every single one and their mother. So the Browns are going to move the football. But I do worry. The Browns' offensive tackles this season have allowed 65 pressures in 6 games.
Oh,
that is astronomically high. Over 10 pressures per game they're allowing between that duo. I mean, it's been a freaking rotating, revolving door of tackles. That's why it's been so bad. But the people calling for Shedeur would make David Carr's rookie season look like patty cake behind his offensive tackles. He would be on pace for over 100 sacks if you started Shedeur the entire season. So just be happy that Dylan Gabriel's out there taking those hits and not him.
I watched the Browns offense against the Steelers the other day. This offense is so devoid of juice. It is so devoid of like anything positive to the point where Dylan Gabriel is turning the wrong way on play action.
Yes, oh my God, I saw that live and I was like, I think the quarterback just ran the wrong play.
Ran the wrong way. Jerry Jeudy's wide open. Like, this is a play that you should make. And he ends up eating a sack. And then on top of that, you get to the red zone finally, miraculously. Isaiah Bond's not paying attention, and you throw the ball off of his helmet. What's happening here? What's going on? I think I could get high school teams to go play better than the Browns have in recent weeks. This feels like a loser leaves town match. This feels like a loser. Like, if you lose this game, go ahead and pack your stuff up because this is not happening anymore. If the Dolphins manage to lose to this Browns team with the way that this offense has looked, we know that it is over for Mike McDaniel. It would be beyond super duper mega over for him. And then it feels like Stefanski is just like, he's just trying to ride it out until he eventually gets that call. So this game feels like one of those like old like WCW loser leaves town matches.
Dude, it wouldn't surprise me if Stefanski just resigns. You know, he's got 2 coach of the years. He's got a reputation. He would get another job very quickly in my eyes if he were to leave. And it's just like, he's been dealing with a circus for 2 years now. Ever since, I mean, even like the Joe Flacco year was kind of a circus. Like I feel for him a little bit. Obviously, it's not as if he has these guys up to speed, but like he's been dealt a tough hand there from that front office. Yeah, I don't know if there's too much more to say. I think the only thing I will add is that you trade Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips immediately after this game. Their stock will never be higher. They're going up against KJ Leviston. They will put on a show. People will be, they will, like I said, their stock will never be higher than after this game. So I expect them to be moved sometime next week. And picking this game, I'll go Browns.
I think I'll go with the Browns here because they're at home and they can run the ball effectively.
Run the ball, yeah.
This game feels devoid of life.
That's an understatement. All right, let's get to the Saints at Bears. Bears 5.5-point favorites. 46.5 points is the over-under here. Battle between 2 second-year quarterbacks that kind of making some leaps here in year 2.
Yeah, this game, I almost wanted to pick the over because of how good the quarterbacks have played. Caleb Williams has, despite what Troy Aikman will tell you on Monday Night Football, Caleb Williams has played pretty well this year.
Well, did you see why? Apparently, Caleb Williams blew him off was the thing. They were scheduled for a call. Caleb Williams blew him off, called him after he was done watching film or whatever, and then Aikman didn't return the call because whatever. It was like late. And so that's why Aikman was so pissed, is that they were supposed to have a call, like the pre-show call, and it just never happened.
This is one of the funniest, like, none of this matters type of like, this is the weirdest beef I think I've ever seen.
You've been around media even more than me because you have a journalism degree. You know that scorning media members,
media members are petty. They will hold grudges
unless you care a little bit about image or a little bit want to be like that's what it is. Let's be real. So Aikman, a little butthurt.
It's genuinely one of the wildest things I've seen. But Caleb Williams has played really well, and Ben Johnson has sort of helped maximize his ability in throwing the ball downfield. He wants to play. He is a big game hunter throwing downfield, and I think that's going to be really useful against a Saints defense that really has struggled to defend downfield passing. On the flip side, Spencer Rattler has been pretty darn good. And I think the thing that stands out the most about him is the fact that his pressure numbers, he's 8th in the NFL in EPA per play under pressure, according to NFL Pro. Like, that's really good. Like, that's a lot of growth that you didn't think you'd see from a 5th-round rookie. And the fact that he's able to stand in there, he's so trusting and willing in his athletic ability, I think some point to a little too much. But he is willing to stand in. He's a really tough quarterback, and he makes throws over the middle of the field. So I think this game is going to be pretty exciting. Like, this one might be a Sunday ticket special. If you can get this game on Sunday ticket and you put it in your quad box, I think this is going to be one of those games you're like, oh, let me turn off all these other games and turn to this one. One of my locks is Caleb Williams over passing yards, but I kind of feel like I want to bet on both quarterbacks overs on passing yards because this should be pretty fun.
I love it. I have been very impressed with Spencer Rattler. We've talked about it a bunch, but I think he's earned himself not only this season, but we can start mock drafting them positions besides quarterback, just because it's not a great quarterback class, and I think he's that good. But you have head coach there, Kellen Moore, still scheming like he has the Eagles' offensive line, and he's still playing this well. Like, these guys are on islands. It is 5 out consistently there in New Orleans. That's why you're not turning to Tyler Shuck this season in my eyes. Like, that's why there's no world in where Tyler Shuck is going to look better, because him under pressure was kind of a treat at Louisville. That was my biggest worry with him, was you did not see him set feet, really attack down the football field. He was very skittish under pressure. Now, he didn't take a lot of sacks. He was good at avoiding that. But that was the worrisome thing with Tyler Shuck. And you can't put him behind this offensive line right now. It's just not good enough pass protection. And like I said, Rattler has been good enough when that's been the case. He has been good enough when, both your tackles are getting walked back into you. He just has looked unflappable. That's probably the most impressive thing, and especially for a guy who's second-year quarterback. Now, he's older. He's 25 as a second-year quarterback, but still, Rattler, I really want to see how the rest of the season goes for him.
I do too, and I really hope that they go into 2026 with Rattler as a starting quarterback. I think he's earned that opportunity because, again, he maximizes what you can do with his ability under pressure, and he's not like a super dynamic athlete, but he got a strong enough arm with enough zip to make some nice passes downfield. So you have that explosive ability and the ability to play under pressure. Now it's just about finding out who is going to be on this team next year. But this game should be really fun.
All that being said, the Bears just have way too many weapons in my eyes, and the Saints defense is not good. They're not going to get to Caleb Williams, and you got to get to Caleb Williams if you're going to try to beat this Bears team. And I don't think the Saints can, so I like the Bears in this one.
Yeah, I like the Bears in this one too.
All right, Packers at Cardinals. Packers 6.5-point favorites on the road. 44.5 points is the over-under. Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't practice with concussion yesterday. Michael Wilson was limited with a foot. Kyler limited with a foot. Obviously, if Kyler doesn't go, I don't think that line moves. Truthfully, it might actually move towards the Cardinals. You might get more people betting on the Cardinals if Kyler can't go, with the way Jacoby Brissett looked last week, as sad as that is to say. But this feels like a game where if the Packers can't just not necessarily dominate, but be in control, we're starting to get worried, because that would be 4 straight games now where they've kind of played down the competition. They should cover this one, in my eyes.
Very quietly, the Cardinals' run defense has been 8th in the NFL in EPA per play. They've been pretty good defending the run. The Cardinals defense has not been the problem here. So I kind of feel like the Packers are going to struggle a little bit. I think they're going to still come out a little sluggish, but yeah, when you're playing without Michael Wilson, you're playing without Marvin Harris Jr., you're already playing without your top 2 running backs. Eventually all those start to come back up to haunt you, because you can only throw to Trey McBride so many times before everybody starts to catch the drift. So I think the Packers turn this into a defensive game. I think they're really going to try and turn it into a slog because you can get any Jordan Love explosive play at any moment. So I'm very curious on if Green Bay tries to run the ball on this team or if they try and just go like full like, hey, we're going to let Jordan Love throw it around the yard this entire game.
I am too, and I think this feels like it should be a let's get Jordan Love slinging it around the yard sort of game. But I also think the biggest mismatch in this game is the Packers' defensive line against the Cardinals' offensive line. That should be, and especially if Kyler plays, that Cardinals' offensive line has serious issues. You probably need, 3 new starters on that if you really want to become a quality offensive line. You got Paris Johnson, Yeldy Froholt, and then you need a new left guard, right tackle. But we've seen that should have been the case last week and against the Browns and probably against the Cowboys too. So teams know the book's out, playing the Packers, get the ball out quick. And we'll see if the Cardinals have the capability to do so. But if they don't have Michael Wilson, they don't have Martin Harrison Jr. I struggle to see it happening.
You just lose most of your juice in your passing game. I'm going to pick the Packers here. I think this one's a little bit lower scoring than people would like, but I do think the Packers could come away with a win.
All right, let's get to Patriots at Titans. Patriots 7-point favorites on the road. 41.5 points is the over-under. Titans may be without Calvin Ridley and L'Jarius Sneed. Ridley with a hammy, L'Jarius Sneed with a quad. I had this thought earlier today, and it terrified me. But the thought was L'Jarius Sneed back on the Chiefs somehow by the end of the season and playing in the Super Bowl with Kansas City. I don't know how it can happen. I'm not sure if you can trade a guy a year and a half after he's been traded. But it just feels like he's destined to stink for Tennessee Titans, go back to the Chiefs at some point in his career and be awesome again. I don't know why. I think it's going to happen. Yeah,
it feels like this the L'Jarius Sneed Titans experience has been awful. Just awful by every version of how you want to put it. He's been flagged a lot. He just hasn't had the speed, and I don't think this defense is really fitting for him. So, of course, he's going to go back to the Chiefs, and he's going to make like a game-winning PBU or like an important PBU in the Super Bowl. And that's just how this always works. I think the Pats win this going away. I think this one's not close unless they get like the post-coach firing bump. But, again, you worry about that because Calvin Ridley might not play. So, I think the Patriots are really, really close to having a good run game. It's just Jared Wilson does not have any strength at the point of attack. And that's not good going up against Jeffrey Simmons this week, who is playing, again, Defensive Player of the Year caliber level this year. It just hasn't mattered because the Titans have been awful everywhere else. And they've really been bad in defending downfield passing. Drake May has been one of the best passers, throwing over 20 air yards this year. It's been an incredible level. I believe on deep passes of over 20 air yards this year, Drake May is 10 of 13. Like, that's incredible. Like, that's insane. And the Titans allow 0.84 EPA per play, allowed over 20 air yards. This feels like a big Drake May game. This feels like a big Milton Williams game from the interior. I just think the Patriots kind of run away with this one.
Yeah, I tend to agree. The Titans they don't got it. And the great irony of this game is that if Mike Vrabel wins, I guess the Patriots win, Vrabel will have more wins with the Pats this year than the Titans as a franchise have since they fired him. Which, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have. But it was organizational failure on numerous levels. It wasn't just the Vrabel firing, obviously.
This feels like two like unwritten rules in sports going up against each other to see who wins. It's the post-coach firing bump versus the coach revenge game bump. Whichever one comes down, like it's a clash of Titans.
The one thing I'll say about Cam Ward, we've talked about a bunch, but like, use your legs, brother. We've said this with a number of quarterbacks. I think we manifested it with Trevor Lawrence. Let's manifest it with Cam Ward. Scrambling is not a dirty word anymore. He has only 9 scrambles in 6 games. He's a great athlete. Use it. You see the top 4 quarterbacks this year in terms of scrambles. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. It's such an impactful part of the game. If you have it in your arsenal, use it. Cam Ward, get out of Dodge. Need to see more scrambles from him in this one. All right. Giants, Broncos. Broncos, 7-point favorites. At home, 40.5 points is the over-under. Harry loves Jackson Dart's under 172.5 passing yards. That's already a low number. But obviously the Broncos' pass defense been a house this season, been a house since last season. And their pressure package, they lead the NFL in pressure rate on defensively and lead the NFL in pressure rate allowed offensively. Garrett Bowles has been playing like a legitimate all-pro contender this year at 33 years old. One of the things that doesn't really get talked about a lot in the draft conversation specifically, but I think it's very important when you're talking about which position, who should I draft. Offensive linemen play forever, man. You get a guy at 33 years old playing like an all-pro. There is only quarterback is the only other position where that's possible on a football field. Like defensive tackle, Aaron Donald retired by that age. Cornerback guys are, Jarrell Revis was cooked by that age. No other position can you do that. And offensive linemen also are far more likely to stay with one team their entire careers compared to other positions. They're far more likely to re-sign and not look for top dollar. It's just kind of the nature of the position. It's a selfless position. So you get a lot of selfless guys playing it in that regard. So I think it's all like, and I go back to the number 6 overall pick with Ashton Genty and Armand Membu getting drafted, the pick right after. I can almost guarantee 5 years after Ashton Genty retires, Armand Membu will still be playing at a high level and probably still be in a New York Jets jersey. And that's just something to think about. But I digress. Go back to this game. Denver Broncos. I don't love them covering 7 points against anybody right now. They just won by 2 against the Jets. I mean, they're a very good team, but they are any given week, they can play down to their competition level.
Yeah, this feels like a game where the Broncos offense sort of plays down, but I feel like the Broncos defense is going to get up for this one. I think the Broncos defense is going to really try and take it to the Giants. Something that Jackson Dart did pretty well was he scrambled against pressure. Hopefully this feels like the Dre Greenlaw return game. And if you get Dre Greenlaw back on the field, you have speed everywhere on this defense. I feel like this is a true bad matchup for the Giants because they are so physical on the ground in the run game. They are one of the few teams that mitigates having undersized pass rushers playing on early downs by just being so freaking good through the middle of the defense in terms of run stopping and run defense. They're able to mitigate Nick Benito not being that great of a run defender because everybody else just absolutely plays out of their minds. I feel like this game is going to be really low scoring. I think the Broncos, if Ben Powers doesn't play, I think they're going to struggle to run the ball just like they did last week against the Jets. And then who's going to make a play? Who's going to make a play for this team in the passing game? Are you going to rely on Evan Ingram in the passing game? Do you really want to rely on Evan Ingram to be your second receiver in the passing game? So I feel like this game is going to be low scoring. I just think the Broncos defense is going to they're going to try and take this Giants team back down to earth.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I like the under in this one, 40.5, because I don't see the Giants scoring a lot of points. I love the feel-good story of what they've been. And I don't think they're incapable of winning this game, but if they win this game, it's going to be 13-10 or something like that. It's not going to be 27-20. It's Jackson Dart can only do so much. Cam Scattergood can only do so much. You have to have some matchups that they can win elsewhere, and I don't see any. I don't see any other matchups they're winning outside of those guys. Let's get to Raiders. Chiefs, 11.5-point favorites, the biggest line of the week. 45.5 points is the over-under there. And this is the Rashee Rice return. 806 yards and 67 catches in his last 9 games. And he's back.
This feels just like a game where the Raiders just get smoked. This feels like a game where like Andy Reid's really like, all right, we got everybody back. Let's really try and like make a statement. And say like, yeah, Chiefs are back offensively. But I do think something that they found their run game. And their under center ground game is one of the best in the NFL. Their 0.19 EPA per carry under center is third best in the NFL. And with that, you can run play action for Patrick Mahomes, and he feels more comfortable using play action, throwing the ball downfield because it's just having Rashee Rice on the field, having Xavier Worthy. Everybody slots back into their normal roles on this offense. So it just feels like this game is going to be one where, like It's going to be tough for the Raiders to cover everybody.
This feels like the, who was the former Texas quarterback? Why am I blanking on his name? Who said, "We're back"? Feels like.
Oh, is that Ellinger?
Yes, Sam Ellinger. We're back. That feels like the Chiefs right now. It's like, oh shoot. This could be just scary Chiefs offense. They might be back with Rashee Rice. So, yeah, I even if they don't cover, I don't think this one's particularly close. All right. Locks recap, and we'll get out of here. Locks are sponsored all season long by Cash App. Making money moves should be easy. That's why there's Cash App. It's fast, safe, and honestly just way more personalized than the other apps out there. I got the Eagles -2.5 against the Vikings. The Dolphins Browns over. The Jags +3 against the Rams. Spatial Tootin over 14.5 rushing yards. And then the Texans Seahawks under. JP's got Mahomes over passing yards. The Bengals Steelers under. Caleb Williams over passing yards. The Panthers Jets under. The Texans Seahawks under as well. Harry's going with the Colts +1.5. Jackson Darts under. Devontae Chan anytime touchdown. And then that Falcons 49ers over. And again, Kyle likes the Patriots to cover 7 against the Titans. Bucks Lions over 52.5. Seahawks -3.5. And then the Seahawks under. We all like that Seahawks under this week. Hopefully it hits. We'll get a little sombrero. All right, that was the lock segment sponsored by Cash App. As you heard me say at the top of the show, new Cash App users can use our code, get free money. Use code PUSHING. Send $5 to your friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 right into your account. Thank you, Cash App. That's our show. We'll be back Sunday night doing our recap of the weekend that was. Thanks so much for tuning in. As always, keep pushing.